JC here with another T&I toy review, and today we're taking a look at the new DC Collectibles Batman Arkham City Mr. Hammer and Harley Quinn action figure 2-pack. Now these figures are based on characters from the Arkham City video game. The one figure, Harley Quinn, is basically a reissue of the Harley Quinn figure that was released, I think, back in Series 1 of the Arkham City line. And then the Mr. Hammer figure, which is one of Joker's goons from the video game. The figures come packaged in the standard DC Collectible style packaging, basic design that we see with all the DC Collectibles. With this particular set, we've got white and black highlights. You've got the Batman Arkham City logo at the top. Then you've got the figures clearly displayed in the window box packaging so that you can see exactly what you're getting inside. And then at the bottom you've got the name of the figures. And in the background you've got some Arkham City landscape. On the left side you've got pictures of the figures just standing there, basically close-up shots of the figures. And then on the other side you've got additional pictures of the figures that are included in the set, along with the credits for who sculpted the figures. For Mr. Hammer was sculpted by Phil Ramirez, and the Harley Quinn figure was sculpted by Jonathan Matthews. Then on the back you have your same basic DC Collectibles design. You show some thumbnails at the top of the figures included in the set, along with a little brief bio about the characters. And then underneath that you have pictures of the other 2-packs that have been recently released for the Batman Arkham City series. Bane and Batman, and then the Sickle and Penguin, which just were released along with this set and we'll be doing a review of shortly. Okay, so here's a look at the figures outside of the packaging. As I mentioned before, the Harley Quinn figure is basically a re-release of the previously single-carded version of Harley Quinn that I believe was released back in Series 1 of the Arkham City line. And I don't actually have that figure, so I can't do a comparison, but it's basically, from what I've seen, it's the exact same figure with maybe some slight paint modifications to it. But for the most part, this is essentially the same figure you got back in that Series 1 of the Arkham City line. And we'll go over some things with her in just a minute. And then the other figure is Mr. Hammer, who is one of the Joker's goons in the Arkham City video game. And he's basically the new figure that you're getting with this set. So if you've already got the Harley Quinn figure from Series 1, you don't really need this figure, obviously. And I gotta be honest with you, I don't really like how they keep doing these 2-packs where you have to buy a figure that's already been released to get the new figure. From a business standpoint, I can kind of understand it, how they're trying to get the most out of these sculpts and everything. But from a collector's standpoint, having to buy a figure, especially when these figures aren't exactly cheap, having to buy a figure that you already have is kind of a pain in the butt. So I'm not a big fan of this, and we've seen it a few times. We've seen it with the New 52 Justice League of America 2-packs that they recently released with Vibe and Katana, and we've seen it with a couple other things, the Batman and the Bane that was just recently released. Having to buy figures that you already have when they're this expensive is just not something I'm a huge fan of. Again, from a business standpoint, I can understand DC Collectibles wanting to try and get the most out of these sculpts, but forcing you to essentially buy a figure that you already have to get a new figure is just, to me, is not a good thing. But that being said, the Harley Quinn figure is nice detailing. I do have a few issues with the figure, basically when it comes to quality control. So let's just go over this figure real quick. Now, one thing I want to point out is, and if you have this figure already, this is probably stuff you already know. But if this is the first time you're getting it, if like me, where you didn't get the original single-carded version, things that I would notate is that you want to be careful with the pigtails. They're not really, they look like they could maybe be moved, but but they're not. And you can actually, because they're basically attached to the head with a very tiny piece of plastic, it's very easy to essentially break the pigtails off if you try and like rotate the pigtails at all. They're not really meant to be moved. There's some flexibility there, but you want to be very careful because you can break it off. And I know this because I actually broke the pigtail off on this figure. I had to glue it back on when I was like moving it around. Another quality control issue that I've had with this figure is in the arm joint. Essentially the joint, because it's a very thin joint and the plastic is very thin here at the joint because it's a female figure and she's got a very tiny arm, it apparently has broken. So when you go to bend the elbow, you can see here that the joint piece, the plastic, is broken. Now, it hasn't come off or anything, but when I try and bend the arm, it's starting to detach. And if I keep doing it, eventually, you can tell that the arm is just going to break off here at the elbow joint. So basically, just be wary that you're dealing with some very delicate joints with this figure, and be careful when you move it. The other arm, I don't have any issues at this point, but like I said, and I'm sure this is, the way the joint is essentially broken is unique to this figure. But again, my point is basically that these are fairly delicate and thin joints, and so can easily be broken. Other than that, I think the figure looks pretty good. I can't say I'm really thrilled with this look for Harley Quinn. Looks more like a hooker than anything, but this is based on how she looks in the video game and is true to that look. So from that standpoint, I totally understand why she looks this way. It's not my favorite look for the Harley Quinn character. But it is nice detailing. She's got some nice detailing with the tattoos, like on her arm. And then here under her belt, you can see, along with, I guess, her G-string that she wears underneath her pants. And the belt is a loose piece. It's not removable, but it fits loosely around her hips, so you can lift up. And then you've got this gold chain that's on the belt. So again, all very nice detailing, and tattoo goes all the way around her arm and everything, so that's nice. But I do also, even though again I'm not a huge fan of this look, I also think that the face sculpt looks very lifeless. She almost looks like a zombie. I haven't played the game a whole lot, so I'm not that familiar with how she's portrayed in the video game, but to me, Harley Quinn's always this kind of very hyperactive type girl, and this figure comes off as just being very lifeless. But other than that, I don't really have any complaints with the Harley Quinn, other than if you already have the single carded version, you probably really don't need this figure. But if you want to get the Mr. Hammer, you of course have to buy this figure. And just to go over articulation real quick, she can move her head left and right. See, as I mentioned, the pigtail has just broken off as I was moving the head, but that's because I had already broken it off when I was moving it around earlier and had tried to glue it back. But so again, just be wary that this can break fairly easily. But the head moves back left and right, no up and down movement, standard ball hinged joints at the shoulders, so she can rotate and up and down. She's got the single joint at the elbow, so she can move up and down pretty well. But again, be very careful with these joints because they're very thin. And then she's got swivels at the wrist, but no hinges at the wrist. There's no midsection articulation, no ab crunch or swivel at all. Standard T-crotch at the legs, single jointed knees, and then no ankle articulation. So pretty much your standard DC Collectibles type of articulation. But again, because it's a female figure and that the joints are very tiny, just be wary that they can break fairly easily on this figure. At least with mine, that's the case. Okay, so now moving on to the Mr. Hammer figure, which is probably why you're buying this set for the most part. Again, a lot of detail. I love the tattoo work on his chest and arm. He's got like Joker tattooed on his arm. So, actually looks more like it was spray painted on his arm. I don't know if that's supposed to be a tattoo or if somebody spray painted the Joker on his arm, but you've got like the running paint and everything, so it looks more like it was spray painted on his arm than an actual tattoo. He's got, obviously this character only has one arm. You know, his counterpart, you know, he's got the right arm, and then his counterpart, Mr. Sickle, which comes in another 2-pack where you have to get the Penguin, and then to get Mr. Sickle, he has the left arm. So, but I like how they've got like the scarring for where the arm was removed. You know, so you've got some nice scarring detail on this side. Now, one thing I know, I don't know if this is a defect. It looks kind of like a paint defect, but I've just got this on the back of his arm. I've just got this strange silver like paint. I assume this is a defect because it doesn't really match like the tattoo on his arm or the Joker spray painted on his arm. And I don't, it does, you know, I guess it could be some kind of tattoo that's supposed to be on there, but it just doesn't look like it fits to anything. So it almost to me, I think this is a paint defect, but either way it looks a little strange. I mean, he's got so much markings on his body that it doesn't totally look out of place, and I don't know if this is just unique to my figure or if this is on all the figures, but I just wanted to point that out. Now he comes with an accessory, his hammer, and there's some nice detailing on this hammer. You know, the hammer itself looks like it's made out of stone or something, which is cool, and then the handle, you know, some nice woodwork design on it. So I really like the detail on the hammer. Now, when you first get it, again, at least with mine, you have to really push it in there to get him to hold the hammer. At first, it's really tight. Once you get it in there the first time, it's not too difficult to get it back in there, and he holds it pretty good as far as gripping it. Now, the hammer is somewhat heavy with the thick, you know, solid piece of plastic at the top, so it does tend to make his arm fall. Like if you want to just have the hammer held like that, like his arm will often, because the hammer is so heavy, will cause his arm to move forward or backwards because the hammer is top heavy. So just be wary of that. But nice detailing on the face. You've got some like white paint, like clown paint around his chin, and then you've got like, it looks like he's got like red lipstick, but I'm not sure if that's red lipstick or blood, because it's kind of like dripping off down his mouth and stuff, like it's blood or something, like he's bitten into somebody. He's got the red nose and the black around the eyes for that whole clown look. So I really like the detailing there. And again, just the tattoo detailing on his chest is really nice. And then it even goes around on his back shoulder. And then he's got some nice like you see like scars and stuff on his skin. So just a lot of nice detailing with the paintwork on the skin and everything, from the tattoos and the paint and everything. So really lots of detail there. On his pants, he's got this ACKG lettering on it. And then he's got like wraps around his feet, and then he's got really dirty toes and stuff. So again, a lot of detail just throughout the figure and stuff. So I really like the detail on this figure, and he's a good size scale. You see he's taller than Batman. And the figure stands just at about 8 inches tall. So again, he's good. You know, he's obviously supposed to be a bigger character in the video game, and so they did a good job with the scaling there. Much taller than the Harley Quinn figure. So articulation wise, again, pretty standard for what we see with DC Collectibles on this one. He can move his head left and right, but only a very little up and down movement. Obviously he's only got the one arm, but it's on a standard ball hinge joint, so he's got good rotation there. He's got the bicep swivel, which is nice, and then single hinged elbow. But because he's got the big muscle on his arm, he can only put his elbow, his lower arm up so much. It only bends up so much. So a little bit of lack of movement there. And then he's got swivel wrists. He does have waist swivel, which is nice. No ab crunch or anything, but he does have the swivel at the waist. And then his legs are attached with ball joints, which is nice. Gives him a little more movability in the legs than the standard T-crotch that we normally see with the DC Collectibles. Now the way the figure is sculpted with the butt and everything, he can't really put the leg back any. He can put it out, but he can't put it back really at all. He can move the leg forward, and then he's got single hinged knees, and again the knees are hidden, or the joints on the knee are hidden with the way the pants are sculpted, and that does, just the way it's sculpted and everything, does limit how much you can bend the knee. So he's only got some minor bend in the knee area, and then he can do the kind of a half splits type deal. And then he's got swivel at the calf muscle, and then he's got swivel at the top of the boot, or he's not wearing a boot, but in this area basically where the pants leg ends, he's got swivel there, and it's hidden by the way the pants kind of sculpted over the joint, which is nice. No ankle articulation at all though. Here he is with his counterpart sickle, which comes in the Penguin sickle 2-pack, which is also basically released at the same time as the Hammer and Harley Quinn 2-pack, and we'll be reviewing this figure as well as the Penguin figure that comes with that 2-pack in the next day or so. But I just want to give you a comparison of the two figures together. And again, it would have been nice if they had just made the 2-pack of these two characters, so we could buy, not having to buy figures that good chance you probably already have. Because again, with the Sickle and Penguin 2-pack, that Penguin figure was already released on single card. So you have to buy, again, likely are having to buy a figure that you already have. If you don't have those figures, it's not that big a deal. But I figure if you're collecting the Arkham City line, you've probably already bought those particular characters. So again, it would have been nice if we had just gotten the 2-pack with these two in it, as opposed to having to get Harley Quinn and Penguin in it. So that about wraps up my review. Again, the Harley Quinn figure, I definitely have some issues, quality control issues. It's a very delicate figure, easy to break. You can see I broke off the one pigtail, which I can glue it back on without too much effort, but it's kind of a pain that it broke off to begin with. And then with that joint, that again, I'm not very happy with the quality on that figure. Other than that, though, it's a decent figure, and likely, again, if you're collecting the Arkham City line, you probably already have this figure. So for the most part, this is the Hammer figure is the one that you're probably most interested in. And for the Hammer figure, I do like it. I think he makes a great addition to your Joker army, and your just for another figure for your Batman figure to fight. So I like the Hammer figure. I wish you didn't have to buy the 2-pack and to get the Harley Quinn figure to get this guy, but I do like the Hammer figure in itself. A lot of nice detailing, and I like the scale and everything. So that's my review. Again, we'll be reviewing the Penguin Sickle 2-pack here in the next day or so check back for that. And till next time, I'll check you later.